Hi, I'm Whitney with the Everyday Gourmet. I want to today cook from a book. This is a new series, Cooking From. Today we're going to be cooking from Stephen Rakelin's book, Ribs, Ribs, Ribs. Yes, that's a lot of ribs. If you like ribs, this is a book you absolutely want on your bookshelf. First of all, Stephen Rakelin is an award-winning, many times over, barbecue chef. He's written almost 30 books, including probably his most famous, The Barbecue Bible. He's also on TV quite a lot, and let's just say his recipes are great. The Barbecue Bible has, I don't know, hundreds of recipes from all over the world, from different countries, showing different regional influences on food, all done through grilling techniques. Great books all around. But there's a particular recipe in this ribs book that I just love, and it's called Princess Ribs. Named after an award-winning female barbecue chef out of Kansas City who likes to wear a tiara and a sash that says it's tough being a princess. But trust me, these are not wimpy ribs by any stretch. They're spicy, they're delicious, they're tender. We're also going to learn about a technique in Mr. Rakelin's book that is fantastic for bad weather cooking. And there's a secondary component to it that is a way to make the most tender ribs you'll ever eat. So the first thing we're going to do is take a dry rub. The recipe for this is part of the Princess Ribs recipe. It's made with coarse salt, brown sugar, regular sugar, and a bunch of spices, including cayenne, cumin, some coriander, and a few other odds and ends. Both brown sugar and regular sugar, and it's just sweet, spicy, and salty all at the same time. What I have here is a rack of baby back ribs that have been trimmed of extra fat, cut in half. Of course, we took what's called the silver skin off the back, so the membrane that holds the ribs together. It can be a little tough to eat afterwards, so we take that off, or the butcher will do it for you. So what we're going to do is sprinkle these ribs with the rub pretty liberally, and then we're going to let them sit for a little bit. I'll tell you what comes next after that. So you'll watch that I'm going to pretty generously sprinkle this. The only bummer about doing this on video is that you don't get to taste the finished product, and trust me, these are worth it. Don't worry about any of the rub that spills over the side. It's not a big deal. I usually make about a double batch of this rub and then just keep it in my kitchen cabinet in a Ziploc so that I can reuse it over and over again. All right, flip these guys over. Go ahead and do the other side. Now, while I've had these ribs coming up to room temperature, and you should always cook with meat that's at room temperature, not fresh out of the fridge, cooks more evenly that way, I've been preheating the oven to 350. Now, this is actually what I said, this is one of the techniques about bad weather that is really great to know. So I live in San Francisco. We get a lot of fog, we get some rain and mist and what have you, so it's not always ideal grilling weather. So this is a perfect time when you can actually use an indoor method to achieve very similar to outdoor results. And in this case, we're going to be cooking these ribs in the oven. So I've been preheating the oven to 350 degrees. So you want to go ahead and do that. And then once the oven is up to temperature, you'll put these in the oven just as is on a sheet of foil, not covered at all, for an hour and 15 minutes. You're going to start to see that the skin will start to pull back, and the meat a little bit from the bones at the ends of the rib racks. And we're then going to show you a really, really great tip for how to make the tender ribs that we talked about earlier. We've learned two things so far from Stephen Rakelin. One is that we can actually do indoor cooking of ribs in the oven instead of on the grill. And the second is to use a dry rub. So now it's time for the third trick. We're going to use a barbecue sauce. Now this is also from Stephen Rakelin's book. This is the hot, spicy, delicious barbecue sauce that immediately follows the Princess Rib Rub recipe. So what we're going to do now is take these two pieces of heavy-duty aluminum foil, and you must use heavy-duty. We'll take each one of these racks and put them in a separate wrapper and slather them with sauce. And the idea of doing this is that we're going to wrap them up, put them back in the oven for a half an hour, and that's going to really moisten the ribs and ensure that they get a combination of steamed and cooked at the same time in their sauce. So you can use something different than the sauce if you wish, but I found this to be the tastiest method. So I'm going to generously slather these on both sides. And by the way, you'll notice here as I flip these over that during the cooking process, just as I mentioned they would, you can see the meat has pulled back from the bones a little bit. That's great. That's just what we're looking for. So we'll slather the other side here. And then we're going to wrap these up nice and tight into foil packets and put them back in the oven, like I said, for about another half an hour. So Go ahead and fold the foil in from both sides. And then from the ends, we'll fold it in and kind of roll it up to make a nice little tight packet. Stick it right back here on our foil, and then we'll do the other one. So once I get these all slathered up, they have half hour left of cooking time, like I said, and then we'll take them back out, we'll unwrap them, we'll slather them one last time and put them back in the oven for a final 10 to 15 minutes until the sauce kind of caramelizes on the outside of the ribs, and then we'll be ready to eat them. So I will show you what this all looks like once we get them out of the oven after they've been in their Texas crutch, as it's sometimes called. Okay, I've taken the ribs out of the oven, and as you can see, I've unwrapped one of the packets already. You'll notice that there's a lot of steam coming off of it. The meat is already looking pretty tender, and if you can see, the meat is pulled back significantly from the bone, so it's really cooking nicely. So let me go ahead and unwrap the second one here, and then we're gonna slather it with some more barbecue sauce, stick it back in the oven, unwrapped of course, for the last 15 minutes to caramelize the sauce. As you're doing this, you wanna be careful not to get any steam burns, so be a little careful about that. These can be really hot. So pull this out, stick it back on here, get rid of this guy. All right. A little more sauce on both sides. And again, you can use any sauce you wish, something store-bought, or you can use the recipe in Stephen Rakeland's book, which is the one I'm using, or your own favorite sauce, whatever you like. All right, flip these over. And last bit of basting here. And back in the same 350-degree oven, no change on the temperature through this whole process for that last 15 minutes to let the barbecue sauce caramelize on the ribs. Okay, I've taken the ribs out of the oven, and as you can see, I've unwrapped one of the packets already. You'll notice that there's a lot of steam coming off of it. The meat is already looking pretty tender, and if you can see, the meat is pulled back significantly from the bone, so it's really cooking nicely. So let me go ahead and unwrap the second one here. And then we're gonna slather it with some more barbecue sauce, stick it back in the oven, unwrapped of course, for the last 15 minutes to caramelize the sauce. As you're doing this, you wanna be careful not to get any steam burns, so be a little careful about that. These can be really hot. So pull this out, stick it back on here, get rid of this guy. All right, a little more sauce on both sides. And again, you can use any sauce you wish, something store-bought, or you can use the recipe in Stephen Rakeland's book, which is the one I'm using, or your own favorite sauce, whatever you like. All right, flip these over. And last bit of basting here. And back in the same 350-degree oven, no change on the temperature through this whole process for that last 15 minutes to let the barbecue sauce caramelize on the ribs. All right, so here we have the gorgeous finished product. I guarantee you these are fall off the bone tender, beautiful caramelized, spicy, sweet sauce, and just layers of flavor because of the rub and the sauce together. So this is a great way to do ribs if you don't have the opportunity to cook outdoors on a nice fine day. And do not forget this great resource, Stephen Rakeland's Ribs, Ribs, Ribs. And again, this recipe is Princess Ribs. If you try it and you like it, do let me know on Twitter or Facebook. Tell your friends, and check it out on the Everyday Gourmet Food blog.